Welcome back to another episode of Phantoms Weekly, where we're going to break down every blast, every breakdown, and every rising star in Lehigh Valley. Let me tell you, last week was a strange one for the Phantoms. A week that looked like it should have been a confidence boost on paper, but ended up turning into two gut-wrenching losses, a shootout heartbreaker, and a handful of performances that tell a much bigger story about where this team is headed. Because here's the thing, sometimes hockey's not fair. Sometimes you outplay the opponent, outshoot them, outchance them, and still back down the tunnel with your head shaking. And unfortunately for the Phantoms, that theme ran through both games last week. But buried in the frustration were some really encouraging signs, the type of signs that tell you that this team's not just going to back down. The young players are taking steps, and that Flyers pipeline is alive and well. We've got big performances to talk about, a couple concerning trends to address, and a massive three-game weekend ahead that could shift the entire complexion of the Atlantic Division. And oh yeah, did I mention help's on the way? Oliver Bonk's going to rejoin the lineup next week, and that alone changes the temperature of this team's blue line. So here's how this episode's going to flow. We're going to start with the two games from last week, what happened, what went wrong, and what surprisingly went right beneath the surface. And we're going to dig into our four player spotlights, each one trending in their own direction, each one adding something unique to this roster. And once we get through the profiles, we're going to take a quick look at the standings, preview a monster three-game weekend, and tie it all together with the big question, are the Phantoms better than their record says? Stick around, because we're going to get into it. All right, game one of the week felt like the type of loss that coaches absolutely hate because the Phantoms did a ton right. They generated 32 shots. They carried long stretches of possession. They pushed pace in the second period and tilted the ice for several minutes at a time. But at the end of the night, the scoreboard simply did not care. Lehigh Valley dropped the matchup 4-1 to the Wilkes Barre Scranton Penguins, a game where the story wasn't the skaters, it was the goaltenders. On one end, Alexei Kolosov did what he could with 21 saves on 24 shots. And on the other end, Sergei Murashov decided he wanted to be the villain of the night, turning inside 31 of 32 and stealing momentum every time the Phantoms threatened to break through. When you outshoot a team by nearly double for long stretches and still can't get traction, it becomes one of those nights where every bounce feels uphill. The lone breakthrough for Lehigh Valley came off the stick of Anthony Richard, who buried his seventh of the season. Another example of why he's been this team's heartbeat offensively. Richard now leads the Phantoms with 17 points, and the goal came off a clean, confident setup from Ethan Sampson and also Hunter McDonald, both of whom showed good poise moving the puck under pressure. Still, the Penguins capitalized when the Phantoms didn't. A couple defensive breakdowns, a missed clear, and one tough rebound against Kolosov opened the door for WBS, who never let go once they grabbed the lead. But here's the frustrating part, because this wasn't just a flat loss. This wasn't a team that got outworked or outskated. Lehigh Valley generated, they attacked, they created grade A looks. But when you run into a hot goalie playing above his baseline and your own bounces don't fall, it becomes one of those burn the tape kind of games, and let's move on. Luckily for the Phantoms, they didn't have to wait long for another chance. 24 hours later, the Phantoms came back onto the ice looking to flip the script, and for long stretches against Laval, genuinely looked like they were about to do exactly that. Once again, Lehigh Valley outshot their opponent 38-32, pushed momentum through extended shifts, and found scoring from the same key contributors who've been carrying the load. And still, the game slipped away in a shootout. Let's start with the opener for the Phantoms. Carl Grundstrom scored, who is freshly back with the Flyers now before their upcoming absence of Tyson Forster. Grundstrom wasted no time reminding everyone why he's so valuable. He ripped home his sixth goal of the season, continuing what's quietly been one of the most reliable forward performances on the Phantoms roster. Even after missing time, he sits fourth on the team in goals and third in points with 15. A stabilizing veteran presence who plays exactly the way the organization wants its bottom six NHLers to play. But Laval punched back hard. Two straight goals flipped the game 3-2 before Lehigh responded with urgency and with one of the prettiest setups of the weekend. Christian Kyrou, who's done nothing but make plays since arriving in Lehigh Valley, stepped into space and hammered home his fourth as a Phantom. The assist, Alex Bump, and Anthony Richard. They represented the exact trio you wanted touching the puck in transition with speed, vision, and deception. But Richard wasn't done. Early in the third, he buried his seventh goal of the season on a bang-bang setup play from Jacob Gauthier and Adam Ginning, who looked sharp after being sent down and reinserted into the lineup. That tied the game at 3-3 and opened the door for another push. Then came Lane Peterson. The veteran snapped home his seventh of the season, putting him into a three-way tie with Barkey and Richard for the team lead in goals. The helpers came from Kyrou and Barkey, both now with 14 points each, and Kyrou already boasting 10 assists in just 12 games with the Phantoms. The Phantoms held the lead until they didn't. Laval clawed back, forced overtime, and eventually won this in a shootout, a rough way to lose a game where Lehigh Valley earned far more than a single point that they took home. Still, the fight was there, and so were the Stars. If there's one player who has taken this Phantom season and stamped his fingerprints all over it, it's Anthony Richard. Every year, AHL teams rely on one guy, one veteran, one tone setter who drives the bus offensively and keeps the heartbeat steady when things wobble. And for Lehigh Valley, that heartbeat's wearing number 90. Richard's production isn't streaky or situational. It's consistent, reliable, and loud. With 17 points so far, he leads the team in scoring and continues to be the forward who bends games in the Phantoms' direction. And what stands out is how he does it. Speed through the middle, sharp edges on entry, and a knack for finding quiet ice in the slot. His two-goal weekend was just another example of Richard recognizing moments, the quick reads, the second effort pushes, and the ability to strike even when the game feels tight. But the bigger story should be how he's elevating everyone around him. Look at the chemistry he's developed with Bump and Kyrou. Whether he's the shooter, the facilitator, or the decoy that opens lanes, Richard's presence creates gravity in the offensive zone. Laval's defenders were draped on him all game and still couldn't shut him down. That's what stars at this level do. They force teams to over-adjust, and then they punish them for it. What also can't be ignored is his leadership impact. When a team goes through tight losses, it's often the veterans who determine where the players' heads go next. Richard competes with purpose. He's the first guy through the neutral zone on back checks. He kills plays along the wall. He's physical when he needs to be, and importantly, he's showing these young prospects, Barkey, Bump, Kyrou, what a pro pace looks like. He's not just producing, he's anchoring the identity of this team. And if the Phantoms are going to keep pushing towards the top of the Atlantic Division, it's going to be Richard's fingerprints leading the charge. Next, we're going to highlight Alex Bump. And if you've been watching the Phantoms closely this season, you know one thing about Alex Bump. He doesn't play like a rookie trying to survive in the AHL. He plays like a rookie who's already decided that he belongs and then works every shift to still prove it. Bump's assist in the Laval game wasn't just a point, it was a perfect microcosm of his season to date. He collects pucks cleanly under pressure. He builds plays from the wall with his physicality. He has the awareness to draw defenders and the confidence to make high-end passes through seams. His hockey sense is mature beyond his age, but the driving force behind his breakout is his tempo. When he hits the offensive blue line with speed, defenders start backing up in a hurry because they don't know if he's cutting inside, using his frame to hold the puck out wide, or dropping it to a trailing forward. And Bump's productive. 16 points, 12 assists, leading all AHL rookies and helpers. That's not a flash in the pan stat line. That's the profile of a player who's adapting faster than expected, rising every week, and showing why the Flyers are so high on him. And the most encouraging thing, his chemistry with the other young players. You could see it with Barkey. You could see it with Kyrou. You could see it when he and Richard hop over the boards together and instantly start reading off each other. Bump processes the game at a speed that allows him to be the natural connector on whatever line he's placed on. But it's not just the offense. His board battles have improved. His defensive reads are cleaner, and he's beginning to understand how to slow the game down in his own end, something many rookies struggle with. Look, this is the type of player who doesn't just develop, he accelerates. And with the way he's trending, it's only a matter of time before the Flyers start circling his name as a legitimate call-up candidate. And with Tyson Forster out for an extended time, that call-up might happen sooner than later. Next, we have Carl Grundstrom, a guy every team needs, a forward who can play heavy, produce, and bring NHL-level reliability to every assignment. Before his recent call-up to the Flyers, Grundstrom was doing exactly that in Lehigh Valley. His goal against Laval, his sixth of the season, wasn't just another tally. It showcased exactly what makes him valuable: strong positioning, quick release, and the ability to find space in traffic. It also bumped him to fourth on the team in goals and third in total points with 15, quietly building one of the most efficient scoring seasons on the roster despite missing games. Beyond the stats, Grundstrom gives the Phantoms something deeper, stability. His forechecking is relentless, and his decision-making is veteran level. He protects pucks along the wall like a pro who understands leverage as well as anyone in the division. And when he's on the ice, the line rarely gets hemmed in. That's why he plays minutes in tight situations. That's why he's trusted in transitional roles. And that's why the Flyers called him up as soon as the Tyson Foerster injury created an opening. He's also become a quiet leader for the younger players. When Barkey or Bump win a board battle, it's because they mirror his technique, and that's development. When Cairo takes a hit, spins off it, and keeps possession, that's development too. Those habits spread through a locker room, and losing Grundstrom to the Flyers will test Lehigh Valley, but it also reaffirms how critical he's been. The Phantoms don't push pace the same way without him. They don't have the same net front presence, the same board dominance, or the same secondary scoring. Grundstrom did exactly what a high-end AHL forward should do. He played well so that he forces a recall. And when the Flyers return him, the Phantoms will instantly feel his boost. Next, we have the chapter that Phantoms and Flyers fans have been waiting for. Oliver Bonk is returning, and his arrival comes at the perfect time. Bonk's game is built on control, controlling gaps, controlling tempo, controlling chaos in the defensive zone. And that's exactly what the Phantoms have been missing during some of those high-event, high-shot games. With young defensemen still developing and minutes being stretched thin, Bonk's re-entry into this lineup is going to calm everything down. What makes him so unique is how he blends composure with assertiveness. He doesn't rush plays, but he doesn't sit back either. He angles attackers into non-dangerous areas. He makes clean first passes under pressure, and he's physical but in a smart way, separating players from pucks without taking himself out of the lane. And when he pinches offensively, he picks the exact right moments to do it. And while his defensive game is the headline, the offense is quietly growing still. Bonk has the instincts to jump into plays late, and his stretch pass ability creates instant transition chances for guys like Bump, Barkey, and Richard. With Cairo taking strides as an offensive blue liner, Bonk's return gives the Phantoms a pairing that can eat minutes and drive tempo from the back end. The other key is his maturity. This is a young player who thinks the game like a 10-year pro. Players talk about how easy he is to read on the ice. Coaches talk about how quickly he absorbs to adjustments. And fans see the calmness he brings when the pressure rises. Simply put, the timing could not be better. With big divisional games coming up, with the standings tightening, and with this team pushing to solidify themselves in the top three, having Oliver Bonk back stabilizes the entire defensive structure. He's not just returning. He's returning to make a difference. Now let's zoom out and take a quick look at where the Phantoms sit in the big picture. At 11-6-1-1, the Phantoms are firmly planted in third place in the Atlantic Division, trailing Providence by 7 points and Wilkes-Barre Scranton by 5. That's a tight cluster at the top, but it underscores just how crucial the upcoming games are, not just for momentum, but for the math of the standings. The good news is the underlying play supports optimism. The Phantoms are consistently outshooting opponents. They're generating depth scoring. The rookies are producing. The veterans are stabilizing. And even in games they lose, they tend to dictate pace for long stretches. This team's competitive, no doubt. And more importantly, they're built to stay competitive. The challenge now becomes stacking wins, especially against teams they're directly battling for position with. Providence is not going to slow down, and Wilkes-Barre Scranton's not going to go away. Laval's heavily improved, and Hershey, as always, is looming. The standings are tight, the opportunity's real, and the Phantoms are right where they need to be. But the climb's only going to get tougher from here. This upcoming weekend is a stretch that could define the next month for the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. 3 games, 3 opponents, 3 completely different challenges, and every single one of them matters in both the division and the conference standings. First up, the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins again. The same team that just beat the Phantoms despite being outshot. The same team sitting atop the division, and the same team that loves to slow games down and capitalize on mistakes. This rematch is huge, not just emotionally, but strategically. The Phantoms need to turn possession into production this time. They need to finish the looks that were left on the table in last week's game. With Bonk returning, the defensive structure may get the boost they need to limit Wilkes-Barre Scranton's opportunistic counterattacks. Then on Saturday, the Phantoms welcome the Utica Comets, a team that thrives on chaos and momentum swings. Utica games tend to be fast, physical, and unpredictable, especially for teams coming off a hard divisional matchup the night before. This will be a depth game for sure. The bottom six and the defensive pairings beyond the top unit will need to stabilize the tempo. Watch for Richard's line to drive the matchup and for Barkey and Bump to test Utica's transitional defense. And finally, the weekend ends at the Giants Center against the Hershey Bears, arguably the most psychologically taxing building in the division. Hershey never gives you clean ice. They never give you easy chances. They grind you, frustrate you, and force mistakes. This will be the most physical game of the weekend for sure, and likely the one where Bonk and Sampson's discipline on the back end becomes crucial. This could be the most important 3-3 stretch of the season so far. 6 potential points, but the real opportunity, momentum. If the Phantoms come out of this weekend with 2 or even 3 wins, the entire picture in the Atlantic Division shifts. This is a statement weekend, and the Phantoms have every right to lean into it. So where does that leave us after a week of tight losses, strong performances, and shifting storylines? First, the Phantoms showed resilience, even in games where the scoreboard didn't favor them. The underlying effort and chance generation was there. Outshooting opponents in back-to-back games is no small thing. To me, that's a sign of structure, talent, and of course, buy-in. And those 3 ingredients tend to pay off over the course of a season. Secondly, the young core continues to grow in ways that should excite every Flyers fan watching from afar. Alex Bump continues his rise as one of the best rookies in the entire AHL. Denver Barkey's becoming a clutch performer. And Christian Cairo looks like a future NHL caliber defensive playmaker. And with Oliver Bonk returning, the defense is only going to get stronger. Third, the veterans matter, of course. Anthony Richard is leading the charge. Lane Peterson scoring timely goals. And Grundstrom stepped up a lot before his call-up. There's a balance forming on this roster, and that balance is what separates playoff teams from bubble teams. Now the weekend shifts ahead to the standings, the weekend gauntlet, and the opportunity it presents. The Phantoms sit in a strong position, but the margin for error now tightens every week. Providence, Wilkes, Barre Scranton, Hershey, all of them are pushing. All of those teams are deep, and all of them are experienced. That's why this upcoming stretch is so critical. A strong weekend doesn't just add points. It sends a message to the rest of the division that Lehigh Valley isn't just competing. They're now contending. And with a healthier lineup, stars start to emerge and prospects start to rise. This team's starting to look like the kind of group that can go on a run, a serious run. So that's going to do it. Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Phantoms Weekly on HW Hockey. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you hit that like button, drop a comment with your predictions for the weekend games, and make sure you're subscribed. Help us on our quest for 2,000 subscribers because things are starting to heat up in the Valley, and you're not going to want to miss what's coming next. So in the meantime, keep it high, keep it wide. I'll see you next time on HW Hockey.
Thanks for watching HW Hockey. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you next time.